Hello again. Welcome to the training video for the deposit payment screen in PayPak Professional 4.0. This screen is used to create the files which are sent to the bank to deposit employees' pay and also to send remittances to institutions from which deductions have been taken from employees' pay. So let's log in to show you how it works. The deposit payment screen is located under the transaction section of the main menu, and it's one of the 4 payment sections in PayPak Professional: cash payments, check payments, deposit payments, and other payments. So we click on the button and this is the screen. Now, there are various screen elements. Let's start at the top right. You've got the year, a list of the years in which payments were made. So right now it has 2021 highlighted, and there are 6 payments which you can see listed here in the payment section. This one which I've highlighted, that has 7 entries in it, because as you select a payment, the entries in that payment are displayed. Watch it carefully. Entry section below. This one has 15 entries. This one has another 15. This one has 7. This one has 15. And this one has 15 again. And the one at the top has 19 entries. So that's your payments section and your entries section over here. At the top left of the screen, there's a style list, and this list is very important in that it controls the format of the file which you send to your bank. So you have to basically choose your bank and the particular style or the format, the file format which your bank accepts. There may be more than one format for a particular bank. For example, if we look here, RBC Royal Bank is listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. It has 3 CSV formats, it has a text format, and it has 2 Excel formats. The way this list is organized, this list has 2 types of entries in it. It has bank formats such as this RBC Royal Bank format, and those bank formats is divided into 3 segments. There's the name of the bank, the file format, and then the third option, the third segment, is the year that represents the year and month in which that format was released. So this stands for April 2019. This is February 2018, and this is July 2017. This one, August 2009. This one is February 2019, and this one is July of 2017. Where the bank name and the format are the same, the entries are then sorted so that the most recent format is listed at the top and the oldest format is listed at the bottom. Now, from time to time, the banks will release new formats, so they may change the format. What we tend to do, if the format has been changed or modified, we are more likely to create a new format at the time the change was made and leave the old format intact, because sometimes some customer, it may change or it may affect some customers, it may not affect others. Others may still need to use that older format. Now, this list is divided into 2 types of entries. It has reports, such as these deposit payments at the top of the screen. I'll click one here, and that says bank deposits by bank. And it has bank entries, just like the ones I showed for RBC before. This is the first one here for Bank of Nova Scotia. This is a DBF format. When you choose a report, at the bottom of the screen there are 2 buttons here. There's an export button and a print button. When you choose the report, the print button is enabled and the export button is disabled. When you choose a format for a bank, the export format is enabled and the print format is disabled. Another thing which happens is, if you look here in this section for options, that options, when it's a printout, there's no option. When it's a bank, the options list, you'll see the formats for the options list. Not all bank formats have options. Some do, some do not. And it varies from bank to bank. Now, what are these options? Let's have a look at Scotia Online for Business. This is a fairly good example of the different types of options you can have. In fact, this has probably a few more options than some of the others do. First of all, at present, this is the only one that in the list which has two formats. It can do an ACH format, or it can do a CSV. So there's a drop down here, you click here and there's a list, there's two options, and you can choose either of the two. If you choose ACH, these lines here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, those are the 6 lines that it will use. The information is over here in the value column. So this says career notes, it says wages, there's a creation date and effective date, a bank ID number, and a last file ID modifier. If you choose CSV, the two options here at the bottom are the ones you would choose, which is the currency code and a description. Now let's go back to the ACH, and this gives you some very good idea of the type of fields which can come in here. This may not be all of them, but this has a good representation of what you can expect to find in the options section. Now these options come from your bank. They're referred to as specifications. The file, they're part of the file specifications, which is the format of the file, how it's comprised and whatnot. It's usually from the IT department section of the bank, and you'd normally be given this information when you first sign up for online banking with your particular bank or institution, because some credit unions have this as well. Now, some of these formats predate PayPak 4, which was released in July of 2017, and some of them, the formats are so old that we don't even have the specs themselves. It's in our code, but we don't have it in a written out format, and maybe, as I said, you have to get it from the bank. The information does not come from us, it comes from the bank. So if there's something here that you don't know what it means or how it works, you have to contact your bank to get that information. What I can tell you is that some of the fields, the bank will tell you what code you're to use or what information you're to put in. For example, the company ID. For some banks, that company ID is given to you by the bank. The bank determines what your company ID will be, and you enter what they instructed you to use. In others, you can have a case where, for example, you may have 3 companies and you're sending to your bank, and you can decide for that bank, for that other bank, you may decide what company ID you wish to use to differentiate between the 3 companies when you upload the files to the bank. Most of them will have a description, and sometimes that description is optional. You can put it in or you can leave it out. Like in cases with the company ID, for many formats that have a company ID, the company ID is mandatory. You must put it in. But like I said, it varies from bank to bank. This format has both a creation date and an effective date. And I know that the creation date must be earlier than the effective date, and that Scotia has some rules regarding these dates, because you can only use, if for example today's date, 5th of May, there's only a certain range of dates that you can use for the creation date, and again a certain range of dates that you can use for the effective date. And like I said, the effective date must fall after the creation date. Some other formats may have similar rules. Also, some banks also have a cutoff point or cutoff time. For example, there are some banks that may say our cutoff time is noon. So if you prepare the file and you want to send it to them, you have to use a date after today's date. Also, the format, we will normally in our code modify the format for you. These dates, if you click here, there's a calendar. You can put the date here. For example, if I use tomorrow's date and I come here and I put that is the day after for the effective date, right? The calendar selects the date for you, but when it saves the file, that date information in the file, it will save it in whatever date format the bank requires. So you don't have to worry when it comes to the dates about whether the date you see on the screen here complies with the format that you may see in the specification document. We take care of that part of it internally. But there are some other sections, like for text files and whatnot, where you must abide by the bank's formats. And they can vary from bank to bank, as I said before. Most of them, some of them may have a bank ID number, which is your company's bank account number. This one has a last file ID modifier, which you don't enter that is automatically generated by the software. Some of the bank formats have what's called a sequence, which is this one here, and that sequence, each time you generate the file, that sequence number increments by 1. So this was never used before in this case, so it says last sequence is 0. So when you create an export file, in this case this is a DBase file, when you create the export file, this will automatically generate the sequence number. It also requires a customer ID, an account number, a transit number, a reference, and again, as before with the other format you saw, a creation date and an effective date. Now, once you have put this information in the first time that you create a deposit payment, you should hit the settings button, and that will save these settings for you, so that next time you come in, those settings are there and you don't have to re-enter them again. If you look at this list, which is quite long, I'll just scroll through it, you'll see as I go through the various, this one does not have options. This has an options. This is First Caribbean. This has a currency code. First Caribbean, October 2018. It has a currency code, a country code, originator account number, and a reference. These were entered in before. The 2017 one does not have the country code. This was not preset. It has just the currency code, the originator account number, and the reference. And this third one, this has just the originator account number and the reference. So you have to be careful that you pick the correct one for you. It varies from bank to bank, so you'll need, if you're setting this up for the first time, you need to contact your bank to find out which option is right for you. In the case of First Caribbean here with this CSV format, the latest format is the 2018-10 one, because that's at the top of the list. As you can see how it's sorted, but that may not necessarily be the one for you. It's quite possible that in your case, or in your company's case, the case of your bank or the case of your company, the format is the 2017-07 or the 2016-09 one. Let's look at RBC Royal Bank. That, as you see here, that has a CSV format. There's no options for that one. The RBC Royal Bank has a text format, and it has options here: sequence, application code, currency code, transaction date, effective date, company bank, company branch, and company account. If you come back to this other style, the next style after that, this is an Excel one that has, the two Excel formats have no options, but the CS, and the only one that has an option is this for RBC Royal Bank is the TXT one. Their CSVs have no formats. For Citizens, they have options as well. There's a sequence, company code, bank number, branch number, account number, file description, and internal ID. If you happen to send payments using more than one bank, you fill out these options here for the first one, and when you save it, it saves that. And then when you come back next time and choose the other format, fill that out, and you save that, it saves that one separate. It doesn't overwrite the first one, the other banks. It saves the ones that you use for each format. Underneath the style, there is a folder, and this folder sets the default path or location where your bank file will be saved. So if I chose, let's go back to Scotia Online because that had all the things filled out, and I could click here and go to that folder. I could change that folder, set it somewhere else if I need to. But normally what you would do the very first time you come to run this, set your folder to where you want the files to be saved, and always remember, click your settings button when you finish making all your settings. Just to go back a bit to the style, let's look at some of the printouts. There is a deposit payment by bank, deposit payment by branch, deposit payment by payee landscape, and deposit payments by payee portrait. Let's look at the one by payee landscape, and I'm going to choose this one here, the one at the top, and this is these entries. So if I hit print and I preview, this is what that looks like, right? It lists out the payee, the bank, the branch, the bank code, the transit number, the account number, and the amount of money. There's a total. It has a little section here where you can have up to 3 approvals or signatures and the dates it was approved if necessary. So it's a very compact layout. There are some customers who will, instead of sending a file to the bank, they send the printout to the bank along, accompanied by a check, or they email this report along with a direct payment to maybe a payroll bank account or salaries bank account. We have this report also in portrait. You can print that one, preview it, right? Same information. This is a slightly modified layout. Also, to what may be useful to you to know about is this deposit payments by branch, where I print that and I preview it. It asks the question, do you want to add a page break after each branch payment? Now, the reason for this is sometimes you're printing that report to send to the bank or to different branches of banks, because some customers do that. Instead of sending to one bank, which disperses it to other banks, to various branches of banks, they send the payments to individual branches of banks. In that case, you may want a separate, each branch's information on a separate page, which is when you choose the page break and say yes to that. In other cases, you're using it internally and you don't need a page break, in which case you can say no. If you're just keeping it for your internal records, you can say no to that. Now let's just show you the difference between the two. This is with the page break. Just push this out of the way here. And this is without the page break. So I'll put the one, where is it gone? Right, good, here you go. Right, here's the one with the page breaks. I'll dock that to the left, and I'll dock this to the right. So you can compare and see the information there now. So you've got Bank of Baroda Georgetown on its own page here. Bank of Baroda Georgetown is at the top of the list. Obviously, when there's no page break, it's less paper. This is 4 sheets in total. This is 15 sheets in total. As I said, this option on the left will be used in the case where you are sending maybe a check or some other means of payment, probably a check attached with the breakdown or whatever the case may be. You may be sending also to an institution, because the deposit payments can send money. No, it's not just for banks for net pay. It could be for, say, a credit union or an insurance company, or whatever the case may be. You may have a pension plan, you might have a medical plan, and at the end of the month you're sending remittances to that institution, and this will be the breakdown or the printout which goes with it, especially if you use the collection payments option, whereby to the bank you send one large lump sum that goes to the institution, and then you send the institution separately a breakdown of who's the employees' accounts to whom that total is made up. So let's close this and move on to the next section. Under the folder there's a date. Now the date defaults to the date of the payment that you've selected. So if I choose this third one, it goes to the 29th of April. If I choose the next one, it's the 9th of April. That date is sometimes integrated into the file you send to the bank and used by the file you send to the bank for date validation purposes. If that's the case, let's say this was a Friday, you were to send the file to the bank, but for some reason it was late or you missed the deadline, and you want to send the file again on Monday morning, but the bank will not accept it with a past date. What you would do is very easy. Don't go and prepare a new payment. You don't have to do that. You click on the date here, you overwrite it, and you can change it to the 12th. And when you export your file, if you're using a file format for a bank, where it requires a date, that's the date that will be used, because sometimes the bank format integrates the date into the file name. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you can set what the name of that bank file is, but for other formats from other banks, they don't allow you to do so. Okay, this option for freeze panes at the bottom, this was added more recently, and it's for Excel formats. For years we've been exporting to Excel, never had a problem, but more recently, I don't know if it's an update in Excel or whatever, some customers were reported that when they tried to export the Excel format, they got an error message about frozen panes. So this option was added so that you can turn off the freeze panes option and export the Excel spreadsheet file without incident, without any problems. As I said, it's only for Excel that will be that it's enabled. If you choose printout, or if you choose a format that's not Excel, you will not see it enabled. It's only enabled when it's an Excel format. Okay, so we've looked at the years to select, we've looked at the style, we've looked at the folder, we've looked at the date, the freeze panes, we've looked at the list of payments, and in that list you see the original amount, overpaid, underpaid, and total. If the payment included an overpayment, or if it was only an overpayment, you would see that in the overpayment column. And basically the rule is the amount you pay is the original amount minus the overpayment plus the underpayment. That's what makes up the total here. So it's this minus this plus this equals that. Sometimes there's a payment which is only an underpayment or only an overpayment, and that will be reflected in the display. For the overpayments and underpayments, we have a video for that, which I recommend that you look at that video, and it explains how the overpayments and underpayments works and the whole entire concept of that, because that overpayments and underpayments, it blends into deposit payments, it blends into cash payments, check payments, and other payments as well. And we've looked at the entries here. Now, one thing we've not looked at so far is these dividers. There's a divider here which you can slide from one side to the other between the payments and the options and there's a divider here as well, which you can move this up or down as you please to get the best display that suits you for your size screen, because different users may have different screens and they may also be using different screens at different points in times. How this appears on my computer, which is this, I'm using a large monitor here, I may have to resize this if I'm looking at it on my laptop computer. These various settings, when you click on the settings button, the style, the folder, the freeze panes option, and indeed the options in the list here where we're using a bank with options, and also the dividers, those settings are controlled or they're saved when you click the settings button, and they are removed, they're cleared out if you click the reset button. So I'm going to click settings to save what I've got here now. Just let me bring this down. I want to make all the options there, I want to make everything nicely visible so I don't have to scroll down, so I'll just resave that again. Good. Now let's look at the buttons down here. The add button is used to add a new payment. Many new customers or customers who are new to this screen, when they come in, they come and they think, I prepared a batch, I'm not seeing my batch. This screen is not for batches. None of the payment screens, when you go into them, will list a batch. What they list are payments, and payments have separate sequence numbers from batches. Obviously, when you start, you may start with batch number 1, and when you process the deposit payment for it, that becomes deposit payment number 1. Eventually, those two sequences will probably separate from each other. Because it's possible for you to create batch number 1, and you can create as many payments for that as you want. You can't delete payments. Payments are kept in the system as an audit trail. For example, if you look here, these two payments, one's dated the 29th of April and one's dated the 1st of May, but the original amount is the same for both of them. If I go back to 2020, you may find cases where there are payments for the same amount and the same date, or the same date but the amount varies. This could be a case where you prepare a batch, you do a payment, there's something wrong with the batch. When you unpost the batch and post it back, that batch number remains. But when you come to the deposit payment screen or the cash payment screen or whatever and prepare another payment for the corrected amount, it gets a new payment number. You cannot reuse the payment number which you had before. And that's another reason why the sequence numbers for the payments and the batches will fall out of sync. They'll eventually go their own ways. They're not going to be the same. It's very unlikely that they'll be the same. 2019, oh, this just has 2, so let's go back to the 2021 where we were just now. Right, so the add button is used to create a new payment, and I'll go into that in a moment, but let me just go through the other buttons here. The export will export the file and save it by default to the folder that you selected. So let's just export this particular one. Now in this case it requires a creation date and an effective date. So if I try to export it, it will tell me a valid creation date is required. So I'm going to use today's date, the 5th. I'm also going to make that the effective date, same 5th. And I export, and I will get a screen looking like this. And this has ACH. This is the ACH format. I actually wanted the yes, ACH. That's correct. So I'll hit save. I could change the name if I wanted to. In this case, I'm not going to do so. And that's it. It tells me that the deposit payment successfully exported, and that's the file name there. Now, one thing we should caution you about, many of these files are text files, CSV files especially. You should not open CSV files in Excel. If you do so, you run the risk of Excel reformatting the file, and it can change information. Excel can strip out numbers that begin with 0. And if someone's bank account number begins with a 0, or there's other information in their in the file that begins with a 0, Excel will strip that number out, and that can create problems for you when you try to upload the file. We've had some customers who, out of curiosity, they want to see what's in the file. They need to look at it. No, you don't need to look at it. You really don't need to. You can look at it if you have a problem, but if you look at it, it's always safest to use Notepad, or we highly recommend Notepad++. That's a great product. So let's, for example, come here, and I'm going to use the First Caribbean CSV. I don't know the country code, so I'll use the 2017 there. Put this as 00 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 as my account number, and reference I'll just put salaries. Cool. And I click on export. There's a little prompt. I say yes to that, and I save this file in that folder as my CSV. Good. Now, if I decide I want to go to that folder, let's open up here to my drive C. That folder was demo files, bank deposits. Right, I've got a few files in here, and this is the one I just did, and I'm going to open it in Notepad. I've turned off the option to make Excel open CSV files by default, which that's a setting that comes from Microsoft. Many people are not in Windows, and many people may not know how to do that. You can contact your IT, or contact one of our helpful sales reps or support staff for assistance in getting that done. Now, this is a CSV file. This is what it looks like. This is the information in here. Now, as I said, if you'd open this in Excel, some people open it in Excel and then they save it. What Excel will do is going to remove leading zeros. So where this is a bank code, this is a bank transit number, those both begin with zeros. This is the currency code, I believe. Yeah, that's the currency code 00. Excel would display this in columns as 10. It would display this as 9286 instead of 09286. And when you save it, those zeros are removed. When you try to upload it, it creates a problem. Another option here, look at this one, 03/05/21. That's the date. Okay. That was the 3rd of May 2021. So that's something else that could get changed. I don't see any account numbers. I don't notice any account numbers in here that begin with zeros, but if they did begin with 0, Excel strips them out. The customer doesn't know. They upload the file, and then that employee's pay is not deposited to their account, or it may even go to someone else's account, and then you have a problem, and you don't want problems. So avoid problems by avoiding to open these files in Excel. Okay, let me just open it. No, I'm not going to open it. Don't let me show you. All right. So that's how the files are created when you export them. The print, as you would have seen, that's for printing if it's a report. The first, previous, next, and last buttons, these navigate through this list of payments. So if I click first, it's at payment number 1. Then as I hit next, it goes through the grid. See? It's here now. When I hit next, it goes to the next one. So you can go down, up or down through the payments list very easy just by clicking on these buttons. You can click on the last one and it scrolls to the last one in the list, and you can move back up if you need to. The refresh button is used to refresh the entries because maybe you are on a network in your office. You have other people who access the payroll and someone else has prepared a payment, and when you hit refresh, it would refresh the display. The settings button, I explained that before. That saves the settings for you. The style, the folder, the date, the dividers, and the options. The reset clears them out, and the video button displays what you're seeing now. That links to YouTube videos. We've been adding this. We just added that this week, and the product videos, they're on our website. They're on the videos page of our website. There are also videos on each product page. So PayPak, when you go to the PayPak Professional web page, the videos for PayPak are on the PayPak web page. If you go to Quick Coster, the videos for Quick Coster would be on the Quick Coster product page. The videos page of the website has all the videos for all the products, but when you're in a screen now, and you'll see more and more of this as we release more videos, as we update our software, you'll notice a new video button, and when you click on that button, that will give you, in this case, the very video which you're watching now, which will be the video for deposit payments. So the video, that YouTube video, is going to be your help. You can click on it when you're using the software to find out, to get some reminders as to how to use it. You can show it to new employees who come on to do your payroll. You have a new person in staff who is to do the payroll, and you yourself may not have time to show them everything. Let them watch the video and they can familiarize themselves with all the features. And you can too, because in many cases we have customers who are not first-time users of the software. They came on board, someone else was there, someone showed them, and usually that person might have been departing or leaving. So sometimes they don't even get that. They're thrown in at the deep end, and they don't get the benefit of the training that comes direct from Greynote software. Sometimes after 2 or 3 changes of personnel, you get some really strange practices going on, which should never happen. So, and it's not instructions that came from us. So if you watch the video, you'll get the instructions from us. If you contact us or contact our support staff, you get the instructions from us as to how the software should be used, not information that got filtered down and parts got missing or parts got added in or unnecessary parts got crept into the instructions that you were given when you came. Okay, now the final part of this demo will be to show you how to add a new payment so that we get it in our 2021 list. Observe that there are 6 payments, and I'm going to go through and show you how to add a new payment. You click on the plus sign and out comes the new deposit payment screen. This screen is very similar to the new payments equivalent screens for cash payments, check payments, and other payments. First of all, you have a drop-down list for, you could choose batch ID to select by batch ID or batch date. There's also an option for earning date. Most people tend to go with the either the batch ID or the batch date. Personally, I prefer to see the dates, but that's just me. Some people prefer the ID, some people prefer the date. So you set for yourself which option you prefer to sort your batches by. If you choose batch ID, or select your batches by, I should have said. If you choose the batch ID, it chooses automatically batch number 184. What is batch 184? Batch 184 is the last batch which you posted in PayPak, because PayPak knows that more likely than not, when you are going to do a deposit payment or a cash payment or a check payment or an other payment, you want to select the last batch that you prepared. Sometimes you don't, but most times you do. So you can choose the last batch by ID, or you can choose the last batch by date, and it gives the date there. The earning date option is used in cases where you have a batch which contains different earning dates, and for whatever reason you want to select only certain earning dates from only the entries with certain earning dates that you have specified, and not others. Again, it's not that widely used. Most people will use the batch ID or the batch date. Now let's look at multiple batches or different batches. Suppose you wanted to do the batch prior to this one, or you wanted to process 2 or more batches together. If I wanted a different batch, these 3 dots, you click here, and this is your list. You've got the years over here. So 2021, that's the one that's selected automatically already. 2020 and 2019. So if I go back to 2021, I could choose the batch before by ticking it here. I could turn off this one, and when I click on apply, that's how I get batch 183. If I was doing it by date, same procedure. I click here. The screen is a little different. This is 2021. I can turn off the one I want and choose the one I turn off the one I don't want, choose the one I want, and when I hit display, I've got the 9th of April. Now if I wanted 2 batches by ID, 2 or more, I click here. I want 184, I want 182. I also want one from 2020. Let's pick 1 or 2 from 2020. Let's pick this Christmas bonus. And let's pick this other fellow here and apply that. I have now selected 4 batches. Okay? If I want to do that by date, batch date, click back here. I choose these 2 for 2021, and for 2020 I pick that one and maybe this one here, and I apply that, and now I've got 4 batch dates. And if I had created 2 batches on the 16th of April, then both of those batches will be selected because they share the same date. Now there are times when a customer may have a weekly payroll and a monthly payroll, and let's say you pay your payroll you date your payroll to the end of the month. So you've dated it the 30th of September, but your weekly payroll also happens, the end of the week falls also on the 30th of September. In a case like that, it's best to use the ID. Switch from date to ID for that one time and select excuse me, select the, that's if you want them separated, because sometimes people may want them paid together. Sometimes a person may want a deposit payment which includes the weekly payroll and the monthly one, but sometimes they may want, for their own purposes, to keep them separate even if they're going to the same bank. So if you want to separate them and they fall on the same date, use the batch ID, and then you'll be able to separate select them set individually. Now, the reason I've chosen these is to show you a feature a little further down. But before I get to that, let's look at some of the other options. We're going to prepare a payment only for the 16th of April, but for now, I want to show you, there's a reason why I've chose these 4 dates. Under and that's the separations part, which is under here, but there's some other sections that I want to look at before we get there. Under the select, there's a list of entries, and you have 3 choices there. There's all, which is the default, which is what most people will use, unpaid, and paid. Now, when you prepare a payment, let's say you have a batch that has 10 people in it. If you select all, it prepares all 10, or selects all 10, I should say. It's possible for you to pay 7 of the employees in that batch and not pay the other 3 for, there may be reasons why you did not pay them at that point in time. Maybe there's some information you were waiting on, or wanting to clarify something before you proceeded. So you've got the batch, 10 employees, you prepare the payment, and you choose 7 of the entries in that batch. And I will show you a little later on how to turn off entries and not choose all of them. If the batch was prepared, if the payment was prepared for the 7 entries, if you come back and chose that same batch again and you choose unpaid, unpaid would give you the remaining 3 entries that were not picked up the first time. Okay, it collects the remainder that were not done the first time. There's also an option for paid, and what that's for is in case you wanted to go back and prepare again for whatever reason. Suppose there was a problem uploading the file to the bank, or you missed the date or whatever reason, but you wanted to prepare the payment again. If you choose paid, it would select those 7 that were paid the first time. So all does everything. Unpaid does the ones that were never paid before, and paid does the ones that were paid before. The next option is the date, and it will default to today's date. And in some cases, customers may want that payment date to fall on a particular day of the week or whatever, or in a particular, for their accounting, for their financial accounting purposes, they may want it to fall in a particular month. That's entirely up to you. You can set it to whatever date you want. The reference is optional. Some customers always put a reference for their payments. Other customers never do. And some customers normally don't put a reference. They only put a reference if it's something out of the ordinary. For example, if it was a bonus payment or a severance payment or something of the sort. So in a case like that, I could put bonus. It could also be an overpayment, underpayment batch that you're doing, and this is explained in the overpayments and underpayments video. So in this case, I'm not going to use a reference. The other option is the separation, and there are 4 options there. Now if I had chosen, and this is for when you have multiple entries that you're preparing together. So suppose I had someone who was in each of these 4 batches here, the batches for these 4 dates. When that person's information is displayed, I'm going to display it now and let you have a look. When I hit display, all the entries come up for the employees for the dates that were selected. Well, at least that's all the ones that are deposit payments, because there may not have been deposit payments in these batches for 2020. Because as I look at it, that seems to be what I'm seeing. The only dates I'm seeing here is for 2021. So let's see if I were to choose some more. Let's go back to 2020. I don't know, it's probably not at that point in time. Display. No, there's no 2021s in there, just the 2021 ones. But this is good. We can use this because we have more than one date. We've got some for the 2nd, and we've got some for the 16th. Now, this is looking a bit cluttered, so let me just come back here and for the benefit of clarity, let me just come back and turn off those December ones, right? Because I said there's a reason why I wanted these 4 dates here. Now, for the separation, when the separation is on none, any person having an entry in these 4, if they have entries in these 4 dates, the software will combine the payments. As long as they're going to the same account number, the same bank and the same account number, it will combine the payments together. That's at none. If you set it to separate years, it will create one set of payments for 2021 and another set of payments for 2020 because you have 4 dates. 2 of them fall in 2021 and 2 of them fall in 2020. If I set my separation to separate months, I will get 3 payments where there's an option for combination, where it's the same person going to the same bank account. I get one for September 2020, I get one for December 2020, and I get one for April 2020 because it will combine the 2nd and the 16th together. The final option for separation is separate dates, and if I did that, it would prepare 4 separate payments for the 4 individual dates listed there. Okay, so that's how the separation works. Most people tend not to use it, but that's just to explain to you how that feature works. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a payment only for the last batch date. So I pick batch date, and these are my defaults. This is how I want my screen to look for a new deposit. Now the overpayments and underpayments, if I wanted to include overpayments and underpayments with this batch, these will be ticked. You can refer to the overpayments and underpayments demo for more details on that. Now, I'm going to hit display. It brings up the entries. If I want to, I could turn off some of these entries in here. I can turn off individual payments and not do them. Okay, or exclude them from the payments list. In this case, I'm going to do all of them. I'm just showing you what the options are. If you notice the type, some are net pay and some are deductions. Now, there are some companies where you pay your staff every week, and in some cases, the net pay and the deductions, or some of the deductions, are done at the same time. Let's say you had medical benefits deductions for your staff, or you had a pension plan deductions, or whatever pension plan. In some cases, it's very common for people to pay their employees the net pay each week, deposit that each week, but to send a remittance once at the end of the month. In this case, if this was once a weekly deposit, I don't want my net pay. Sorry, I only want my net pay. I don't want the deductions. So these will be turned off. If there are few, you could turn them off manually. But if there are a lot, if you have 50, 100, 200, 600,000 employees or more, it's very tedious to come through here and turn these all off. That's what our filters is for. You click on the filter, and if you only want the net pay, right? You have, let's pull this down a little bit, see some more. If you don't want the deductions, you click here and you say none there, and those are off. So the net pay, those 15 entries are listed, and the deductions, there's none of them. And then when you click on apply, there you go, these 4 are off. So you would do that each week, paying the net pay, excluding the deductions. And then now what do you do at the end of the month when you want to pay the deductions alone and not the net pay? You do the reverse. You would display your batches for the entire month using the option up here. Hit display, everything is listed out. Then you come to the filter, and in this case, when you click on the net pay tab, you hit none to turn these guys all off, and you go to deductions and you would click all if you want it all, because it's possible to pick some and not others. Okay, you could come in here and pick some but not others if you want to, but you pick the ones you want, and then when you hit apply, only the deductions are being prepared for the deposit. The net pay is excluded. In this case today I want all, so I'm going to pick all from here, and I'm going to do a calculate. So this is basically what you do. Select all of them. Well, when you hit display, it lists all of them. You next click the calculate button, because normally you don't want, in this case I don't want to change anything. The calculate lists them all out. These are my payments, how the folks are to be paid, and these are the net pays. These are the deduction. Net pays at the top, deductions at the bottom. Then I click on prepare to prepare the new payment. I'm just going to put in here PayPak demo payment. Okay, good. And I click on prepare, and I say yes. The payment has been successfully prepared, at which point I now exit this screen, and there it is listed at the top of the payments list, and my payments for 2021 have gone to 7. I can now export this like so and save it. I can put, it has the date there, I don't need to change anything else, I'll just leave it like that. Well, let's just say, no, let's change that to, let's change this to the 14th. Let's put 2 days after. So I save that one. Good. And if I wanted to print it, I could come here and choose deposit payments. I like the landscape one, and I can print it if I wanted to keep a printout for my own purposes. If it's sent through the bank may usually have an option to let you print out if you need to. So that's it for the deposit payments demo. We do look forward to releasing more of these training videos in the days and weeks and months and years ahead. Thank you for bearing with us in the time when there was no when we did not have these demos prepared yet, and look out for the next one. Thanks and take care. Goodbye.